All right, everybody. Welcome to the AFC Northcast. I am Justin, here joined as always by Chad
Hey, Yinzers.
and Joey.
West Side, Maryland.
And so this episode, we're going to give you our previews of the games this week. That's week 3 of the NFL. Right now, the Titans-Jaguars game's going on, which is like the perennial Titans-Jags Thursday night marquee game. I don't know what they do and why they do it, but whatever, man.
I feel this way about every single divisional matchup in that division.
Yeah.
Titans, Colts, Texans, Jaguars. You could throw them in a bag and pick 2 random teams out, and I don't know, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be like a 12-8 game.
Snooze fest.
And then the 10th time, Derrick Henry's going to run for 250 yards on somebody.
Right. But
yeah, they've had like such good marquee draft picks and stuff too. It's like they've been on the precipice of greatness. With Andrew Luck and Jacksonville going to the AFC Championship game, and none of them can I guess hold on to any momentum over multiple years.
is Jalen Ramsey isn't playing, is he?
He sure is. I'm looking at him right now.
Really? Interesting.
It's probably the most enthralling thing about this game is waiting for a seemingly inevitable Jalen Ramsey explosion. But They're up 14-0, so as long as they're winning, probably won't get that.
Right. Well, that's the Thursday night game. Probably not going to get a lot out of us on that one. But yeah, let's talk about the AFC North games this week. So we're going to start off talking about the Browns and the Rams. So the Browns and the Rams is the Sunday night game. I don't know, maybe it's like supposed to be presented as like the marquee game, as it's like the late night Sunday night game. But I'm not really sure what to say to this. I think a lot of this kind of got started with the hype with the Browns in the offseason, as far as being the Sunday night game. And then as things are kind of approaching, I don't think anybody really expects anything exciting from this at all. I think at this point, it doesn't really come to, are the Browns going to win? Because I think it's more on the lines of, what would the Browns have to do to somehow secure a victory? I mean, other than the fact that the Saints had Drew Brees get hurt last week, the Rams are just, performed phenomenally. And it's funny because Clay Matthews, who Joey kind of joked on a little bit about being old a couple episodes ago. Yeah. He's been fucking stellar, man. He has been outstanding with the Rams, man. So, I don't know. So what do you guys think that the Browns need to do in order to try to secure a victory this game?
I've been waffling between running screens directly at Aaron Donald to try to slow him down from getting to the half a second to 2/3 of a second, or trying to stay as far away from him as possible, like maybe getting him caught in a traffic jam, preventing him from even being on the field at all. But in all seriousness, I think you really need to take advantage of your 2 really, really talented wide receivers. They both run really effective short routes, and they can turn them into big plays. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, you don't have to run goofy bubble screens where they step backwards 3 steps either, like the Steelers do all the time, although you could. They're both really good with slant routes and angle routes and outs. They can run the full gamut of these short timing routes that basically can just let Aaron Donald get tired, but you're safely getting the ball out well before he would ever have a chance, or any of their other pass rushers for that matter. That's pretty much what I see. And Baker, as Joey talked about the last podcast, he needs to not force it this week big time. Take everything underneath that they give you. You don't want to try to play at the Rams' pace to beat them.
Right. I think that the defensive line, offensive line matchup, which it's hard to even say matchup, is like kind of the big point about the game, right? Yeah, man. The Browns' offensive line looks decent against the Jets last week, but I just don't see them performing to that same level. Or I mean, and again, I say decent against the Jets, but I don't see them performing the same level against the Rams. It's going to be tough, man. Clay Matthews has been crazy around the edge. Aaron Donald obviously up the center, and they still have fantastic defensive backs and everything. I mean, it's the defense is going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, the Rams are a really good team, and they just showed it even in the first half against New Orleans last week before the wheels fell off for the Saints, kind of. And I don't want to blow my load on analyzing how you defeat a high-powered offensive team, because we talk about that a lot when we talk about the Ravens too. But yeah, Baker needs to force it less, and they need to sustain drives. They need to give their defense a chance. Justin, you're in the camp of Jimmy G is doo-doo. I'm starting to find myself in the camp of Jared Goff is doo-doo.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that stuck out to me last week is how much Sean McVay helps him at the line. So this is going to be a big test for Wilks as a defensive coordinator, disguising things. So the way that works, if you haven't heard before, so the mic in the quarterback's helmet cuts off at like 12 or 15 seconds before left on the play clock.
Yeah.
And so what the Rams like to do is get set on offense before then, which is very high tempo, not necessarily to snap the ball quickly, but so that Sean McVay can read the defense and make adjustments to Jared Goff for Jared Goff. So obviously a big defensive challenge for the Browns, but they're good up front. And so if they can bother Goff, they've underwhelmed this year on both sides of the ball, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only been 2 weeks, and the offense can still gel. The defense is still good. Steve Wilks was a head coach in the NFL for a reason. So anytime you have a former head coach as a coordinator on your staff, I think that's generally a plus for that unit. So I think it'll be a close game. The Browns need to make sure they're sustaining drives and give their defense a chance, because when the Rams are on the field, they're going to push the tempo.
Right. I think that's something that I've been missing a lot so far this year from the Browns, which we only got I think we got one last week, was turnovers, man. Like there has been, and like you said, right, it's only been the first 2 weeks, but I just feel like there's been a significant lack of turnovers compared to last year. And if they can win that battle, which sounds so cliche and so cheesy, but honestly, man, if the Browns can just get some turnovers and give the offense a chance to score some points, I think maybe that's something that'll, make them successful. That being said, though, I did in the pick'em, I went for the safe pick and I picked the Rams. I don't know.
Coward!
Wow,
it's tough. I don't know.
That's all right.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. And, if only somebody had warned you that the defensive turnovers could be something that regresses a lot.
Yeah.
Don't listen to them, Justin. Mm-hmm. They're your team. You believe in them. Don't you listen to Joe. Justin Tucker's going to regress to the mean, too.
Yeah.
His mean. He already did after missing that extra point last year.
Right. All right, well, let's hope that the Browns don't get completely smashed out and that they have enough morale to carry on after that week. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like negative Nancy this week. I don't know, man. I'm just not after that the performance against the Jets. That was pretty underwhelming, if you ask me. I'm back to the cautious. I wouldn't even say cautiously optimistic, just cautious Browns outlook. I don't know. Now that the season's actually started, so we'll see what happens. But
you guys have talent. You guys got the talent. Right. It's just a matter. It's going to be a good measuring stick. See how gelled everybody is.
Right.
It'll be fun.
So let's talk about the Bengals then. Let's move on to the a less exciting game, probably in my opinion. Let's talk about the Bengals.
Yeah, so the Bengals will travel this week to undefeated Buffalo. This game's in Buffalo. The Bengals are a mash unit. Lawson's out. Webb is out. AJ Green still out. I haven't read anything new on him for a while.
Michael Jordan's out. Not the basketball player.
Well, he's also not going to be suiting up for the Bengals this weekend. So
good point.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
are the Bills a legitimate 2-0 team?
Yeah.
Probably not quite, but they could find their way with how things are falling apart in the AFC South with injuries and such. They could find their way into wild card contention. They could be 6-7 with a few games left to go.
AFC East, bud.
Right, but I'm saying as far as like the wild card goes.
Oh, okay.
Right. Typically we get like the shitty wild card game on the first Saturday of like the first game of wild card weekend, where it's like whatever AFC South team that won the division and somebody else like
maybe the Bills could be that somebody else.
Yeah. I think Josh Allen is good ish. Yeah. I don't know shit about the Bills.
Yeah, I don't think that Josh Allen's that exciting.
I picked the Bills in this game. I'm losing faith quickly in the Bengals, and at their secondary is going to be more vulnerable than it was last week. Carl Lawson, I know he's not the biggest name. He's probably the fourth biggest name now on that D-line behind Dunlap and Geno and Sam Hubbard. But Carl Lawson is no replacement level player. So it's going to be tough sledding for the Bengals, but John Ross could have 4 catches for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns.
It's true.
Actually, relatively plausible, too. I was listening to the marriage of the week of the Cincinnati Bengals and the Bills Locked On podcasts, and the Bills beat guy was saying that while the Bills defense is overall really good and really well schemed, and their secondary has some great players, they aren't super duper fast. So if you time it right and you trick them, you can get over the top, which is basically exactly what the Bengals want to do. So John Ross, if he can not drop, that key play, he actually could be a difference maker in this game.
I don't think that the Bills have enough up their sleeve to, I don't know. So I actually, going into this when Joey started talking about it, I couldn't remember who I picked. And in my head, I thought I picked the Bills, but I just looked and I picked the Bengals actually, and I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna lock that pick in. Yeah, I know the defense is a little bit banged up, but man, I don't know. I guess the Bills just fail to excite me at all. Going back to that first game that I watched with the Jets against the Bills, like they don't have anything flashy or exciting on offense. They don't have any real marquee receivers. They've got Frank Gore, which I know he's still going to make some plays. Josh Allen will make some plays with his feet. Like, I get that. Their defense has a couple of spots that are, average plus at least. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think that the Bengals offensive line is strong enough to hold up to the Bills defensive line, who I don't think has enough firepower, I guess. And I think that the talent that Andy Dalton and the receivers have, I mean, even between the tight ends, right? Eifert and Uzama. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the Bengals have what it takes to be able to pull this game off. That doesn't mean that I think that the Bengals are top contenders, but I definitely don't think that the Bills are 2-0, a 2-0 team.
If you're watching this game on Sunday at 1, may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah.
I would also factor in that we've agreed that the Bengals offensive line is absolutely terrible. Their first-round pick from last year, Billy Price, who was supposed to play center, is now back in the starting lineup as a left guard. I I don't think their offensive line is good enough to stop anybody. And my other thing is that Frank Gore, he's 36 freaking years old, and he will break tackles. And Cincinnati doesn't tackle. Like, once you're past the defensive line, they don't tackle. And
They
Frank
showed
Gore,
that last week.
Yeah, so I'm concerned. Like, I think the Bengals could win, if they play like they did against Seattle. Like, sure, they could go in there and win. But, man, that last game they played leaves a real stink. It just leaves a stench. It just is a stinky, stinky stench. And Frank Gore, I mean, he probably is so excited about this game. He's like, dude, I can break these linebackers' tackles all day. They're going to make me look like I'm 35 again.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to fucking mark this. This is going to be Joe Mixon's breakout game for the season. Fucking mark it. I don't know.
Who's going to block for him?
But who's fucking blocking for Frank Gore, man? Nobody. That's who.
I don't know. The ghost of Richie Incognito.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
The other thing is that because the defensive line is the key unit and Josh Allen is so mobile, the defensive line is going to have to be like so disciplined with their pass rush that you can't just unleash them. So you basically have to cage the one part of your team that's aggressiveness can be its huge strength. Because if Josh Allen breaks free, he's going to make those guys look like idiots too. Him and Frank Gore are going to be pancaking linebackers and secondaries. They're going to be stiff-arming people. It's going to be chaos out there.
Yeah, it's kind of...
And the Bills starting wide receivers are Cole Beasley and John Brown, and they're not your prototypical NFL physical specimen receivers, but they're both little, quick, good in small spaces type of guys. And last week, the Niners killed the Bengals on screen plays and little short stuff and yards after the catch.
Yeah, so going to Chad's comment, I think we saw a little bit of both from the Bengals defensive line, or have seen. So like last year, again, not a whole lot has changed, but last year I think they showed more discipline against that, being able to stop the run, which is so strange that this year that they've completely regressed in that sense where, like we were talking about, they were just so aggressive that they don't even recognize someone's running past them with the ball, So I can only, I guess, hope, or I guess any Bengals fans out there can only hope that they can kind of dial in what they had last year to help stop the run a little bit more. Obviously, towards the end of the season, that all completely fell apart as their defense not only fell apart, but also became the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL. But in the beginning of the season, I remember we talked about it a lot. And hopefully they can finally, I don't know, tune that in, dial it in. I don't know. But either way, I think that the Bengals have a decent chance at this. And the Bills are overrated. And definitely, again, not a 2-0 team. So what was their first game was against the Jets, which, you could say was due largely in part to C.J. Mosley. Plus, we don't even know, what kind of kissing diseases fucking was going around at that time. Who was their game 2 against the Bills?
They beat somebody bad.
Let's see. Oh, the Giants. That's right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it wasn't like a stomp out by any means, right? And the Giants have a pretty inept defense, if you ask me, with the exception of Peppers. I still like him. But that being said, I think that the Bengals have a chance to kind of start setting the pace a little bit, get their season, in their minds, get the season right, and then prepare to lose a bunch of games in a row. So, all right.
We'll see. I think it should be a competitive game. I mean, for sure, the Bills are 2-0, but they're not. No one's talking about them as a Super Bowl contender. They played the right teams at the right time, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that horse is dead.
Come on, Bengals. Get us excited. Get us excited about you.
Right.
Do something.
Yeah, it's like that meme with the stick. Come on. Right.
Well, should we talk about another team we can poke with a stick?
Yeah,
Ooh.
Man. Ooh. Go for it, dude.
The Sixburg Steelers.
I would not poke this sleeping bear with a stick. Let's just put it that way.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
I think it's really important in the 2 to 3 week period of the NFL season to remember how we felt about teams before the season began. I think a lot of people are very excited about San Francisco because they're 2-0. 2-0. Looks fancy. Looks really good. Oh my gosh. Garoppolo, he's handsome. But here's the thing. Before the season started, we're all like having all these doubts about San Francisco. Is their defense going to be any good? Is Richard Sherman too old? Who's going to run the ball? Are all the running backs going to get hurt? How come Jimmy Garoppolo threw 5 interceptions that preseason game? I'm not confident about that yet. They played the Bucks. They got 2 pick sixes. We were all skeptical. Then they played the Bengals, who we allowed ourselves to get excited about because the Bengals played competitively in a week, and they stomped them. So, look, the Steelers are probably not going to be favored in this game because they're starting their backup quarterback, who is now their starting quarterback because he's going to start for the rest of the year. We can win this game, guys. Yinzers, we can do it. I'm going to tell you why. 1, Joe Staley is injured. Left tackle. He's the guy. We're going to be rushing all day. Right past him. Bud Dupree, this is your coming out party. If you want a big contract in the NFL ever again, you need to be just everywhere. You need to be running around. You need to be doing some bull rush stuff. We need to do some stunts. We're going to stunt you around into the inside. We're going to get Stephon Tuitt. I don't even know who's behind Joe Staley, but we need to attack the left tackle, which is the right side of the Steelers' defensive line. That's the big defensive move for me. The other thing that needs to happen, the Steelers need to miraculously learn how to guard a tight end. Don't ask me how to do that. I'm not an NFL coach, but I'll offer a few suggestions. 1, if he's lined up against the line, hit him with somebody big. Stephon Tuitt, throw him, give him a little shiver. You know what I'm talking about? Give him a little of that something. Also, don't let him be one-on-one with anybody. I don't care if you traded up to get Devin Bush and he's really fast and cool. Nobody goes one-on-one against George Kittle. Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Kevin Butler? What's his name? Butler? I don't know your first name because you're going to get fired anyway. And we got to stop the run. Matt Breida, he's not that good, right? Come on. The Steelers love stopping the run. It's our bread and butter. We talked about it last week. What do you guys think the defense should do?
So I think it's interesting because talking about Kittle a little bit, spin zone, the Bengals were able to shut down George Kittle last week.
Only George Kittle, though.
Exactly. Only Kittle. They game planned for Kittle and Kittle alone. So Steelers, what the defense has to do is take the Bengals game plan, but extend it to the other players. All right? Are you hearing me? More than just one player. Now, I'm interested to see... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Or just let Kittle do whatever the fuck he wants and lock down everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, look, man. I'm interested to see if...
down, that's a tall task. But...
Yeah. If Minkah Fitzpatrick plays. That's what I'm interested to see.
He's playing. Oh, he's playing. Yep.
Well, we'll see what kind of success he adds to the team. I think it's interesting with the 49ers because, again, they don't have a lot going on marquee, and I feel like I've said this word 100 times now this cast, but they don't have, in my opinion, anything not really that marquee, and I think so much of it just rests on the shoulders of the Shanahan offense and the style that he's running with those people now that he's had some time to work with them. Garoppolo's had some time to understand the plays, so on and so forth. So, but with that, I think that the the uniqueness and the complexity of the 49ers offense is going to be enough to trick up the Steelers defense, right? And I would have said that were Ben to start regardless. And then the question for me going into it would have been, well, is Ben going to be able to outscore them? And then you don't have Ben, right? So at this point, I actually picked the 49ers on this one because I just don't have confidence in Mason Rudolph. I don't know what to say. I mean, he's back up for a reason, man.
He's a starter. He's a starter now, Justin. He's one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's what a media person would say. No, I agree with you a little bit. I'm not going to obviously pick the 49ers to win because I don't think they're that good. Honestly, I
Right.
don't think they're that good. But I do agree with you that the 49ers, like, look, the problem with the Steelers secondary is that basically no matter what you do, if you do anything well, it's a bad matchup for them. Because if you have like a really strong, fast, great athlete, they can't cover him, a la Josh Gordon and DK Metcalf. If you have a really good scheme, they don't seem to talk to each other at all. So you can just run really good route patterns and then they don't guard anybody. So, yeah, it's problematic. And it's hard to imagine that with a new player who's been on the team for 18 minutes that he knows everything. So they're probably going to have to run simpler stuff and presumably talk better. I don't know. It's tricky. But Garoppolo is prone to huge mistakes, and the Steelers can get after the passer. So we're not talking about Russell Wilson, who can turn any play into a huge play. And we're not talking about Tom Brady, who either cheats so he knows everything, or is really smart so he knows everything, or probably both. We're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, a handsome guy that dated a porn star and maybe is good. We don't know. So, like, I think the Steelers can rush the passer if they're playing well and guard for long enough for Jimmy Garoppolo to get confused and scared because he's coming off a big injury. And that's how the Steelers would win. And they would also in that same game plan be shutting down the running game. Because if you can make San Francisco one dimensional, a lot of the beauty of that offense is gone.
So AF from YouTube just commented, said that he thinks Mason Rudolph is garbage. Do you think that we know enough about Mason Rudolph to kind of say that, or are you still, I guess, enamored by what he did in the second quarter last game? I'm sorry, the second half last game.
Dude, no, he doesn't know anything. Like, no one knows what Mason Rudolph is. He's played 2 quarters of football against NFL starters. Like, that guy's funny, whatever his name is. Funny guy. You could say any backup QB is garbage, and statistically, the next week, they'll probably make you look pretty smart. So he should bet. He should be a betting man. He knows how to, play the odds. I think Mason Rudolph has a real opportunity here. He's throwing to one receiver who he has 5 years of chemistry with in James Washington. He has shown now in last game, do you know how many snaps he took in preparation to start? 0, guys, 0 snaps. He is preparing now to start for a whole week. They're going to be ready. And also, we can use a Cincinnati game plan. We can use the Cincinnati game plan of pre-snap motion and stretching the defense out horizontally with misdirection to tire out the defensive line because it was working for Cincinnati. They just had 95 holding calls. They can do things that make Mason Rudolph's job easier, like these screen passes and these short routes that, guess what? There's 1,000 of them in the Steelers playbook. Ben Roethlisberger's been doing this shit for the last 6 years all the time and be fine. And he won't be afraid to throw the deep ball because their biggest deep threat, James Washington, is a guy that he's thrown like 52 touchdowns to. So guess what? Whatever your name was, check it.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the run statistics from the Niners-Bengals game last week are deceptive because of all the holding penalties. That's one area on the Steelers' offense that is a known entity, that their offensive line is a plus unit. The Bengals' defensive line is a minus unit, or maybe even a minus unit.
All the minuses.
So, yeah. So I think that's something that the Steelers can bring to the table differently than the Bengals. And I think that if Devin Bush has a good week of practice, he's got the talent to, if anyone on that team can, and obviously Minka's there too, and it doesn't take a whole lot of learning and scheme to have Minka shadow George Kittle, whatever his name is, Kittle.
Kittles and bits.
Minka is that prototypical safety type of guy that everybody was looking for 5 years ago when Jimmy Graham was destroying everybody. So I think that the Steelers are a little bit more capable of neutralizing some of what the 49ers do good. And I also don't think that the 49ers are great. I picked the 49ers this week.
Yeah, me too.
I think it'll be a close game, but just having Mason in there, starting in the NFL is a steep learning curve. They're on the road on another coast. So his first NFL start is in an away stadium.
Joey's all about that coast-to-coast travel.
But we'll see how it goes.
My final point.
Even though it failed me last week.
I am not going to tell you Mike Tomlin's record in traveling to the West Coast because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. 1-4. What I am going to tell you is this. San Francisco, notoriously low fan turnout. Look for Terrible Towels Sunday afternoon. 4:25, by the way. 4:25, you're going to see Terrible Towels all over San Francisco. 2, the Steelers are the type of winner that thrives on people not taking them seriously. They want to be an underdog. They are down and out right now. The next 3 weeks, because we're looking ahead, are huge for them. They have to win this game, and then they have 2 straight division games. They're playing the Bengals, and then I think the Ravens after that. Something like that. Might be the Browns. Two division games in a row, and then they get the Chargers in whatever city they decide to be in that week. It's going to be LA, but it should be
Beverly Hills. Yeah.
So they really need to win 3 games in a row right now, because after that it's the bye week. So they need to get to that bye at least 3-3. This is like a must-win game. Like, I know that you consider the week 1 Tennessee game a must-win game. It wasn't. This is actually a must-win game. They have to win it to remain competitive. Their backs are against the wall. They have enough veterans that that's going to mean something in the locker room. This team will fight, and they will win. And that means one of us is going to be right about the outcome of this game. Me.
Unless it's a tie, and then we're all just fucked again.
The Steelers do that. They do the tie.
All right. Nice. All right, so that's Joey and I are picking the 49ers. Chad's got the Steelers. So let's move on to the final game of it's actually not the final game of the Sunday, but it's the final game that we're going to talk about. But it's going to be the Ravens playing against the Chiefs, which we kind of talked about before the cast, is probably the actual marquee game. Like, this should be the real 8:25 game, but I just don't think anyone saw this before the season started. So tell us about it, Joey. Tell us what you think.
My approach to this game, so the Ravens have the luxury of being a game up in the division. So for me, this game is, unless it's a blowout, it'll be pretty fun for me, I think. I think it's a true opportunity, measuring stick type of game for the Ravens to see how they can hang with an elite unit. I think the sides are more evenly matched than people will give the Ravens credit for, because there's still this thing around Lamar Jackson. He's played some underwhelming opponents this year, but you don't control who you play. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the Chiefs' defensive unit is anything crazy special to write home about. Yeah. The Chiefs have played the Jaguars and the Raiders this year. So let's not get crazy about the Chiefs' defense. They haven't been playing, fucking Dan Marino and Joe Montana.
That would be something, though.
That would be something, huh? One thing to note about Kansas City's defense specifically, can you guys name the Jaguars and Raiders tight ends between the two teams? Can you name 2 guys?
Didn't they have Waller? Like Marquise Lee, or did he retire?
Nope, Mercedes Lewis is gone.
Mercedes Lewis, that's
whatever. Waller, the dude from Hard Knocks.
Waller from Hard Knocks. The Raiders also have Jared Cook.
That's right.
The Jags have some white guy named O'Shaughnessy. But I did that little exercise to tell you guys, Kansas City has allowed 17 receptions on 21 targets to tight ends this year. Probably the leading vote getter for who's going to lead the Ravens in receptions this year before the season started was pretty good tight end by the name of Mark Andrews. Hayden Hurst seems to be trying really hard to get off my shit list. I'm sure he listened to us during the preseason and was really affected by our analysis, our hard-hitting analysis. And Nick Boyle. So I would expect the Ravens to do what the Ravens do. I don't think they need to change anything on offense. The only thing that will affect the Ravens on offense is anytime you play these potent offenses like the Chiefs have, it puts pressure on your offense from the beginning. The Ravens so far this year have been aggressive anyways, going for it on fourth downs and some things like that. And it was actually the Chiefs last year, if you recall, who started in the first quarter going for fourth downs and things like that when the Ravens went to Arrowhead with Lamar and a very different offense. John Harbaugh's a good coach. I think the Ravens will lean on the run game a fair bit. Play a little bit of keep away. It's going to be important to have the defense rested. But offensively, I'm not very worried. As long as the Ravens don't press too much, I think they'll be just fine. Defensively, I don't know if there's much you can do. The Chiefs' offense is really good. The Ravens have the fortune of not having to play against Tyreek Hill. So that's great. But the next guy up, some little fella named Robinson, who caught like 200 yards receiving last week and was running all over the Raiders. So Earl Thomas said in the media that Patrick Mahomes will not throw it over his head. I'm paraphrasing. He said something to the effect of, we're not giving up those big plays this week against the Chiefs. And I think that's going to be the key. So Earl Thomas is a little bit of a security blanket for me this week, and I picked the Ravens. You shouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty much gonna pick them every week.
Same. Am I the only person that didn't pick their own team? Fuck.
I'm gonna pick the Ravens every week.
That's my job.
They're not a shitty team. If I was a Bengals fan, I'd pick them most weeks still. But when they played like the Chiefs or the Patriots, I'd probably pick the Chiefs or the Patriots. I think the Ravens are good enough that they have a chance to win any game that they're in, and that means I'm going to pick them. The defense, you just have to get after Mahomes with 4 guys. That's crucial, because once you start sacrificing guys in coverage, the Chiefs are going to murder you. Mahomes has been relatively one-dimensional this year. He's mobile enough, but he's not a true dual-threat guy. And it should be a really fun game. I don't think it'll be a track meet necessarily like everybody supposes it is, because the Ravens, if they're smart, I think the Ravens go out of their way to slow the game down.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the Ravens have a dog in the fight, based on, again, like we were talking about, building that confidence and building the ability for Lamar to throw the ball. There's a couple of bright spots on the Chiefs defense. Emmanuel Ogbah went over there. I still love him, even though he's not starting. They have Tyrann Mathieu, right? But, I don't know, man. I think that the offense has the ability to make some stuff happen, but what worries me is the defense versus the Chiefs offense. Like we talked about last week, how there were some holes that were exploited by the Cardinals. And, part of you can kind of wonder, I guess, maybe that was a little bit of Suggs, being familiar and knowing what to talk about, in the rooms, in the teams and everything like that. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Injuries are plaguing the Ravens defense, and yeah, man. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Jimmy Smith hurts a lot.
I've been tracking some Chiefs trends, and every week a new wide receiver that we don't think is very good catches 200 yards. So get used to saying the name Byron Pringle. He's the Chiefs' third string wide receiver on one side. I project based on these new trends that he will have 212 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. It'll all be in the second quarter. And that's what makes what's his face Mahomes one-dimensional. He just picks a quarter and he throws 4 touchdowns. And then the rest of the game he just high-fives fans and brushes his hair and stuff.
So if the Ravens pick the right quarter to defend properly, they'll be fine.
I actually think like a lot of people are like, "Oh, Mahomes is better this year than last year," and all this stuff. And maybe he is. And people are doing like really great analysis that's over my head. Unlikely. I actually think he's not played as good as last year, but he's still really good. So I don't know. I think if this weren't actually the Chiefs' home opener, kind of a big deal. I would be tempted to say that I think the Ravens have like a real shot, especially if it was in Baltimore. I think that they match up really well. The Ravens haven't even played what their offense actually is. It's to run the ball like 45 times, which they should be able to do against the Chiefs. I actually think the Chiefs secondary is not bad. They have Bashad Breeland, who I think was sneaky good in Washington and is not. He's not bad. And Kendall Fuller is their slot cornerback, and I think like he could maybe get physical and disrupt Marquise Brown a little bit and make things a little bit harder on him, especially with safety help in the back. You got the Honey Badger sneaking around. I actually think the Chiefs secondary is pretty good, so I expect Joey is right. I think the Ravens want to try and slow this game down, and they should be able to do it. The problem is that Mahomes can play 75, 78% of his ability and throw 4 touchdowns in a game, and it's all in one quarter. So yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are going to win, basically, but it just doesn't make a bunch of sense because I actually think the Ravens match up pretty well against them. And so this will be a very, very fun game to watch because you got Andy Reid scheming wide receivers open. You got Earl Thomas running too fast for the scheme to work, but then the scheme maybe works anyway. I don't know. So exciting.
Man, if the Ravens win this game, that'd be wild.
I'm going to be unbearable on Tuesday if the Ravens win this game.
Right.
I'd be surprised. Chiefs home opener. Lamar's going to get super confused and throw the ball like 80 feet over someone's head. And it's Tyrann Mathieu is going to catch it, and he's going to run into like 7 circles like Palomalu used to do and score a touchdown. It's going to be kind of great.
I got some statistics for everybody.
What's up,
Numbers.
You know who leads the NFL in passing touchdowns?
Touchdowns?
Lamar Jackson.
And Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. What's it, 8?
7.
7.
Quarterback rating. Lamar's first in the league. 145.2. Pat Mahomes is third. Dak is actually second, interestingly enough. Yards per attempt. Dak is first in the league, but Mahomes is second with 10.7, and Lamar has 10.5. And they are the top 2 in the league in 20-plus yard completions. So it should be a pretty fun game. I think we're going to see a lot more of what everyone expected the Ravens offense to be this year. But going into this game, Lamar leads the league in air yards per pass completion, which means he's throwing the ball in the air more than anybody else in the league. Just saying. More than Pat Mahomes, who can throw it over everybody's head.
I have a stat for you. Do you know what 1/8 is as a percentage? It's 12.5. Yes. It's 12.5. We're 12.5% of the way through the season. So I don't care who's leading the league in any Lamar.
Or Patrick.
Yeah.
Well,
small sample size. Am I right?
Yeah, that's why I'm not calling him the greatest quarterback of all time. But his small sample size, these 2 games plus the last 17. Or whenever they lost in the playoffs.
With Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt.
Like, based on Lamar's regression to the mean, he should have like 6 fumbles this week.
Everybody wants to talk about how weak the Ravens' schedule has been this year, and the Chiefs played the Jags and the Raiders. So we don't know. They haven't been tested either.
I told you the Ravens match up well. I just don't want to hear about Lamar.
So I think Greg Roman's got a little something for him, and I think Wink Martindale has a little something for him. It'd be a really fun coaching matchup too. Andy Reid is a pretty bright offensive mind, and I really, really like the Ravens coaching staff. I think they're really good too.
They are really good. It should honestly be a super, super fun game. I'm very excited to watch it. And after this week, the Steelers, thought to be left for dead, are going to be one game division lead. So that's really exciting too.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the most exciting game to watch. So it'll tell us, it'll be like the litmus test for the Ravens. Unless, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know who's played teams that are actually good? The Steelers. Everyone's writing them off for dead because they played 2 playoff teams. Let's just everybody calm down. 12.5%. Lot to go.
All right, guys. Do you have anything else?
Quick
required.
Poll update. According to the fans, AFC North Defensive Player of the Week is Flash Garrett.
There you go.
There was actually 89% to 11%. There were 9 votes. Chad was the only person who voted for Stephon Tuitt. So against what I predicted with the Steelers fans showing up for the Yinzer pick, that did not happen.
My Yinzers ate too many pierogies and got bellyache.
Yeah, they fell asleep in the lazy boy.
Nice.
And AFC North Offensive Player of the Week also got 9 votes, but was much closer, 5-4 in favor of Lamar Jackson over the
You want to know
diva
why?
of the division.
It's because I didn't vote. That's why.
Well, that's your
I
fault.
excused myself from bias. No, I just forgot.
Justin is a true member of the sports media, and he does not have rooting interest.
Absolutely not.
Now you have to do is complain about airlines on Twitter. You're all the way there. Pulitzer.
Mm-hmm.
At Delta Airlines. What the fuck?
All right, guys. We're going to be cutting this episode short, so no crazy antics or anything like that this week. But we still gave you our previews for all of the AFC North games this week. So hopefully we led you in the right direction if you're looking for pick'ems. But next week, Tuesday, we'll be back and we'll be talking about the games. So it'll be our review. So Tuesday, 9:30 is our review episode. Thursdays at 9:30 is our preview episode. So tune in for those. Interact with us. Chat with us live. We're on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube live. And then after the fact, we upload all of them wherever you can get your favorite podcasts. Wherever your favorite place to get podcasts is. Whatever, man.
It's all the same.
It's all the fucking same. So, yeah, man. Tune in. Interact. Vote in the polls. Join the Pigskin Pick'em. And have a good sports ball week.
Tune in Tuesday to talk about, is Patrick Mahomes overrated?
And is Bud Dupree going to the Pro Bowl after his 4-sack performance?
Oof.
Hall of Fame, even.
I think we should revisit that. That'll be fun to look at on Tuesday to see how many sacks Bud Dupree has.
They don't save these things, right?
No.
He had a Hall of Fame helmet-to-helmet hit last week. That's what he had.
Yeah, he did.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Adios.